Hi, hello. In my previous video, I talked about using a Linux bridge with most recent Ubuntu version with the most recent Linux kernel to run a XDP program to rate limit DNS denial access, DDoS. So in this video, I'm going to demo how to actually run the XDP program directly on the old Ubuntu 16.04 old kernel. And so without the requirement of adding a Linux bridge. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And so here is the issue ticket I filed to the BPF2 project. So my thought is, if I can build a BPF tool statically and run the BPF tool to load the XDP program on the Ubuntu 16.04 kernel 4.15. So this is actually already too old for eBPF world. So, and as you can see, when I run the BPF tool to load the XDP program, and it says legacy map definition are deprecated. Use BTF defined maps. Yeah. So the problem with this is even the oldest BPF tool from the BPF from this BPF tool GitHub mirror. That's the oldest version available on this GitHub mirror. Still cannot load the XDP program because the XDP program has legacy map definitions. So what does this legacy map definition means? So if I show you the code here, this is the actual XDP program to have the BPF map defined here. So this format of a BPF map definition is the legacy BPF map definition. So because the BPF tool depend on the new libbpf library, which I think after version libbpf 1.0, it does not support the legacy BPF map definition. But this is old BPF map definition, so it doesn't support. By the way, I can show you a BTF defined map here. The new way of define BPF map. So here, this is the round 3 from the XDP pyramids example. So here is the round 3 XDP program. It has both legacy map definition and BTF defined map definition. So this is still the legacy BPF map definition. But this is the new BTF defined map definition. You can see here that use section data maps. And the legacy one is use BPF map def sec maps. So that's legacy. This is BTF. And this is a new way of define BPF map. And we should yeah, follow this one. So back to this BPF tool loading problem. So the BPF tool does not work in this scenario. And I actually worked with the BPF maintainer. He made the suggestions, maybe to try to build a BPF tool from the kernel repo. And because this is a GitHub mirror for BPF tool, and in kernel Git repo, it also has the BPF tool and the libbpf library. And so I took his suggestion, and yeah, he actually helped me extensively, and thanks for that. And so I tried the build the, here I did try BPF next, which is a kernel repo for BPF next tree, 4.15 kernel from the main repo. And I could build the BPF tool, but it lack of load feature. So still I cannot use the BPF tool from here to load the XDP program, because the XDP program is written in a old way. And that's actually good, because I wanna because the Ubuntu 16.04 is the old kernel, and the XDP program needed to be written in an older way, like the legacy map definition. Because Ubuntu 16.04 kernel 4.15 does not support the BTF map definition. Yeah, so how can we do this without BPF tool? And so I searched around, and here is the solution I found from this project, Cilium, from the Cilium repo. There is the iproute2 repo. So I looked at the README. The README here has the following branches are used for loading different Cilium version. So there is a libbpf static data branch, and static data for version 1.10 for older Cilium. So I think Cilium support old kernel like 4.9 historically. So I think they probably run into similar problem with Cilium loading eBPF program on old kernel. So maybe this repo is a iproute2 repo is a good tool for me to try out. So I cloned this Cilium iproute2 repo to my build machine. So I installed Ubuntu 16.04 with all the build tool installed, and I cloned the iproute2. And because basically I want to build the IP utility here, and then copy to the machine I want to test. So, but when I compile this iproute2 utilities, I ran into a problem that I'm puzzled. So, for example, if I run prefix US local to configure, like first configure, right, to check the library support. So it shows here libbpf support no. I guess okay. So then there is the ELF support. Initially, it says ELF support no, because the IP utility will load the XDP program and do the ELF parsing, right? So if this one is not supported, it will not load the XDP program. So at first I had this ELF support no, so I couldn't use this tool. Then I looked at the configure script itself, and there is like a check ELF part here, and so if this condition doesn't match, so it basically sees check if the lib ELF library is installed, and if it is installed, we should have a ELF support. So I did install lib ELF, and it still gives me ELF not support, not found or not supported. So that makes me puzzled, because I did have this lib ELF installed. Why it still says ELF support no? So I actually hacked this with not. So if I just see what it give me, so what will happen if I say, oh, lib ELF does not exist, and what would happen, right? So after I added this not, and then it gives me a clue that I am missing a library. I'm missing a library, and so that lib ELF depend on. So I installed the library. So this is a library I installed, zlib 1g.dev -dev. So the lib ELF is depending on this library, but when I run this, it doesn't give me the clue. Oh, I need this library. So that took me a while to figure it out by hacking the configure script to add the not check. Okay, yeah. So eventually I'm going to compile this IP utility tool, and so here is our IP utility tool. You can see here it says IP route to 5.11 with a Cilium here, and so I copied this IP to my machine running a DNS server, and so I have the IP command here, the same IP command from Cilium iproute2 repo, and this is my XDP program that has the legacy BPF map definition. So I'm going to show run the demo now. Let's start a DNS request here. So you can see the DNS resolver is working good, right? So I send like 100 requests per second to this DNS server, and it's like a small flooding, right? But now I want a rate limit to 5 to rate limit the second per request per second. So let's attach this XDP program. So I wanted to attach to this ETH0 interface. And by the way, this is a kernel version. That's actually the most recent kernel version 4.15 for for Ubuntu 16.04 release. So now I'm going to attach this XDP program. Set. Okay, let's just copy paste. And so this is the way I use the IP utility to attach this XDP program to the ETH0 interface. See, it says continuing without mounted eBPFFS to old kernel. I guess, yeah. So anyway, it's attached successfully. And let's show the so you can see here now ETH0, it has XDP generic attached. So we have a XDP program attached here, right? So now let's look at the request. See now there is a failed request here. Yeah, so I think I rate limited to 5 requests per second in the XDP program. See, you can see there's every 5 successful requests probably, roughly there, and then the request failed. Yeah, so this is but if I remove the XDP program, it should work. It should the rate limit should gone. IP set, IP link set dev ETH0 XDP generic off. Okay, so we remove the XDP program, and there's no more XDP generic, no more program. So now the request should always work, right? So no more failure. Yeah, so this is how I run the Cilium IP route to utility to load the old XDP program on old Ubuntu 16.04. So, and in this case, we no longer need the bridge solution in my previous video. Okay, yeah, so that's what I want to share, and thank you.